Hey, what's up guys? So welcome to episode 3. Today we are going to go through a back workout. My back workout focus is going to be on density rather than width. You'll find with this back day that, the things that I apply to my leg day still apply here. A heavy focus on execution. I'm going to take you through my style of hitting back and hopefully provide you some tips that make sense to you guys and will hopefully, help you in your own back training. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna start off back day with calves. I train calves 3 times a week, and so I do it twice on a leg day, or every leg day I do it, which is twice within my rotations, and then I do it once on a back day. So the other day we did it standing. Today we are gonna do it on a leg press. And again, what you really want to concentrate on is that full stretch at the bottom and then a full contraction at the top. You want to take as much of your Achilles tendon out of this movement as you can, so that way you focus on the calf muscle itself.
Alright guys, so we're going to hop into a little voiceover here. So to provide a little bit more clarity about what I was talking about with my rotations are an A and a B cycle, and those take place within 5 days. So it's legs off, back, shoulders, chest, arms off, and then that cycle is repeated between an A and a B. And I train calves 3 times within that. So within a 10-day span, I train calves 3 times. And this is how I have my execution every time that I'm training calves, whether I'm going for heavier low rep sets or higher rep sets with a little bit lighter weight. I really focus on that stretch at the bottom and a full contraction up at the top. Your Achilles tendon is the longest tendon in your entire body. Not only that, it's probably the strongest as well. So you really need to take that out of the movement. If you're just bouncing up and down, that is where you're not going to get a lot of calf involvement, because the Achilles tendon takes over. It's responsible for making you jump high, do things like that. So if you're just utilizing that during all your calf training and you're training your calves in that manner, it's more than likely that you're not going to see actual calf growth by performing them that way.
Okay, so with calves, probably more than any muscle, I think it's very important to take this basically to failure on almost every set. You really want to challenge this muscle. It's a muscle that doesn't respond as well as most muscles. So taking this to failure and doing a lot of volume and frequency throughout your week is going to be really key. You hear a lot of people talk about genetics for calves, like I just can't grow my calves and whatnot. But it mostly comes down to, usually they have terrible execution. They train it at the end of a workout when they're always tired, rather than first when they're most fresh. And then on top of that, the volume and the frequency is very low. They train it once a week and then they get mad that it doesn't grow. So make sure that you take all those things into account if you are really trying to grow your calves. All right, so now that we're done with calves, we are gonna move on to the first back exercise, which is gonna be an upper back row. Again, this workout is more for the thickness, the mid back and the upper part of the back than it is for the lats. So most of my movements are going to be targeting those areas. And what we're gonna start with is basically a cable row from a low position rowed into a higher position at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit my right side first. And the rep range here is going to be 8 to 15. We're also going to use a bench so that we can basically be fully chest supported. That way we're able to have as much output as possible to the targeted muscle.
So one thing I'd like to point out in the execution of this movement is the full protraction of the scapula. So you can see here that when I come down to the bottom, I let the scapula fully protract. Just get that full stretch at the bottom right there. So this is pretty key in my opinion anytime you're training upper back or your mid back, is to allow this to happen. Think about if you're doing a bicep curl, say you get all the way to the top, and then you only went halfway down, and then you just repeated that over and over to the top and then halfway down. That's essentially what you're doing if you don't allow for full protraction of the scapula while you are training upper back and mid back. So you really want to make sure that you are using that full range of motion for these. So you can see I'm basically pausing at the bottom to ensure that I get that full stretch. And then when I'm driving up, I'm really concentrating on just driving the elbow back as hard as possible.
Now, a lot of people will go directly into their left side after this, but you really want to avoid that. If you're actually putting full effort and output into your right side and you go directly into working your left side on like unilateral movements, that just tells me that you're really not putting in full effort to your other side. Because if you were, you wouldn't be able to hit it directly after. You would have a drastic drop off in reps. So what I'm gonna do here is probably wait about 45 seconds to a minute before I hit my left side.
So moving on to the left side, I'm going to perform this exactly in the same manner as I performed it on the right side. That full protraction, that full stretch at the bottom. And then a key to all back training, and I'll talk about it a lot in these voiceovers, is going to be your elbows. Elbows and ankles is basically how you train your back. Wherever that elbow is driving towards, that is the part of the back that you're going to be training. So as you can see here, my elbow is along the angle of my upper back, therefore that's what I'm targeting. And also pay attention here to how my forearm is staying almost completely straight. You'll see a lot of people where the forearm breaks down, the wrist breaks down. That's when you're bringing a lot of bicep into the movement. So if you really want to train your back, think about your hands as being hooks and your elbows are what is driving everything back. So drive that elbow as hard as you can back.
All right, so just finished with the upper back row. It was 2 sets right there within the 8 to 15 rep range, and the goal was to stay in the high end of the rep range. So now we're gonna move on to a bent over dumbbell row. This is gonna be 1 set, and it's gonna be an all-out set. Before I start my working set, I'm gonna do probably 3 warm-up sets, but that's just to get used to the movement. I'm not gonna do like excessive amount of reps. I'm gonna do these for probably like 6, 7 reps. Then I'm gonna take a jump in weight, do that for, probably 3 reps, take 1 more jump in weight, do that for 1, and then I'm gonna go into my working set. So there's a couple things that are important with this exercise. One is not using excessive momentum, and the other one is getting like a decent stretch at the bottom of the exercise. So you're gonna wanna keep those 2 things in mind while you're performing this.
So coming off of that upper back row, which, by nature targets the upper back, this is what I call a bang for your buck exercise. This is going to be a dumbbell row. Now you can perform these with the barbell, obviously, if you want. I prefer the dumbbell. I feel like it moves better in free space. I can get just better movement all around. It feels more natural for me. So that's why I do the dumbbells. And why I call this a bang for your buck exercise is because if you look at the elbows here, they're not driving towards the hip, but they're also not driving straight up on the upper back like they were on the previous exercise. So this is basically hitting, really all aspects of the back here. It's not something for isolation, in my opinion. This is something where you're just kind of looking to hit all your musculature within your back here. And again, same thing applies with the protraction of the scapula here. I'm getting that full stretch at the bottom, and I'm, emphasizing that. So going into my top set here, you can see a little bit of the magic hands. These are 95s. I think I got them for 16 or 17, something like that. But you're going to notice at the end, this is when some momentum starts coming into play. And this is an exercise that I am okay with having a little bit of momentum towards the end of sets. You'll see at the beginning of the set, everything is, pretty spot on. There's not really any momentum being used. But towards the end, we do start seeing some momentum. You'll see me drop a little bit lower in order to like kind of build a little stretch reflex to pull up a little bit harder. But this is about as much as I'll do. You'll see some people going crazy with this, and in my opinion, that is just creating a much higher fatigue to stimulus ratio than you need.
We just finished with the dumbbell bent over row, and now we're going to move to a hammer strength row. There's two different variations that you can do with this, depending on what handles you grip. I'm going to grip the ones that are neutral to target mostly my mid back here. We're going to do 2 working sets within the 8 to 12 rep range, and on this movement I'm really concentrating on trying to drive my elbows back as hard as possible and almost try and touch my elbows together, so that way I'm really working that middle back musculature.
Hell no. Tell me this man ain't rocking a ketchup and mustard suit right now. And he got them mayonnaise white kicks on looking like the condiment trifecta. Man, I don't know why you up in the gym. They missing you on aisle 9. You need to be right next to the relish. This man up in here smothering them weights. You should be smothering them hamburgers and them hot dogs over at the barbecue. I bet you went over to McDonald's to try to put your order in, and they look at you like, why you ain't clock in yet, Ronald? Why you an hour late, Ronald? Oh, Ronald McDonald looking head ass. Damn, my mic was messing up for a second, but I think it's working now. With this movement, this is a really good piece right here, this hammer strength row. You can work the upper back, you can work the mid back, you can work the lats, depending on what your grip is, what handles you decide to use. So with this, as I explained, I'm really looking to target the mid back here. And one thing to keep in mind is really try when you pull it back to get that squeeze at the top. I think it's important to be able to, hold that contraction just for a split second. And you'll see me perform that in pretty much all these exercises here. Again, what I'm thinking about is just driving my elbows back. I'm not thinking about pulling with my hands or, using my forearms a lot. I'm really just trying to pretend like my hands are hooks and I'm driving my elbows back. Another little tip here is you see my chest coming slightly off the pad. So what that allows for is to get a little bit more range of motion on the way back and allow a better contraction at the top of the motion. So don't get too crazy with this and start really ripping your chest off the pad, but having it come up a little bit will give you a better contraction at the end of the movement.
All right, so we are now moving on to the 4th and final movement. This movement is going to be a movement for the lats. So it's going to be a chest supported one arm pull down. And within this, you really want to concentrate on driving your elbow into your hip joint, so that way you can target your lat as best as possible. I'm only doing 1 set here, and I'm going to do within the rep range of 8 to 20, but I'm going to be aiming for getting as close to the top of that rep range as possible. And as always, use as much control as you can, especially on the eccentric portion of the lift.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this workout was going to be more targeting the density of the back or the thickness rather than the lats and the width. However, I do have, one movement in here for the lats for width, and that is this movement right here. I usually use a Nautilus one-arm pull down, which is an excellent machine. However, that's not available at this gym, so I kind of, made a jerry-rigged version right here. So you'll notice here the difference with the elbow path. The elbow path here is driving into the hip as opposed to all the other exercises that we're driving either towards the middle part of my back or towards the upper part of my back. When you want to target your lats, you almost always want to think elbow into your pocket. If you're driving your elbow into your pocket, I can almost certainly guarantee you are targeting your lats with that movement. So as you can see here, elbow into that hip pocket, and I'm concentrating on, really milking the eccentric part of this lift as well to feel that stretch on the lats. Now you'll notice here there's a slight difference too. I'm not allowing for full protraction of my scapula here. That's because they're not it's not an involved part if I'm trying to train my lats. If I let the scapula fully protract, I'm essentially bringing in other musculature into the movement that I don't want involved, and I want to target my lats, so I'm keeping that like down as far as I can and not letting that protract. So this is really going to help keep the tension all in the lats here. And the same thing applies here. I'm trying as hard as I can to keep my forearm straight and simply drive with my elbow. This exercise, if you don't have access to like a Nautilus one-arm pull down, this is a really good one to do. If you can do it two-handed as well, if you have like a gym pin attachment or something like that, then do this two-handed, and that's a really good option as well.
All right, so now the back is done with, we are going to hit shoulders for just a little bit. We're going to do 3 working sets here on this side lateral machine, and then we're going to move on to full range laterals, and we're going to do those for 2 sets. But right now, 3 sets here, minimum of 15 reps, and if we can get more, we're going to go for more, but that's what we're shooting for here.
So the way I'm going to perform these is probably slightly different than the way you're used to seeing them if you're like in commercial gyms. Normally most people will grab those handles right there. However, I'm allowing my hands to be basically spread out, and this allows me to work in the scapular plane as opposed to having my hands on those handles right there. So give this a try if you've never tried it this way before. More than likely you're going to feel this much more in your side delt. And then along with that, as you can see, I'm going past the 90-degree point. Your side delt is highly involved past the 90-degree point. So yes, you are going to feel some trap involvement here, but you're also going to feel your side delt probably more than you ever have. So if you can, try and get as high up as you can go while you're performing these, and you're really going to start feeling your side delts like crazy.
All right, so the last movement of the day is going to be a full range of motion lateral movement. So it's going to be starting from here, coming all the way up like that. If you ever have a problem feeling your side delts when you're doing lateral raises, give these a try, and I guarantee that you will feel your side delts. An important thing with these is not to use momentum, so no swinging with these. You want to isolate the side delt as much as possible and control the eccentric, because that's where a lot of the muscular damage is going to be.
A slight difference between these and your typical side laterals that you'll see where you stop at about shoulder height is, rather than work in the scapular plane here, I'm actually pretty much having my hands at my sides at the whole time, going straight out to the side and straight up rather than in that scapular plane. And that's because once you get to about the 90-degree point of this exercise at shoulder height, if you were to move in the scapular plane, transitioning from that 90-degree all the way up to the top to the 180 degrees, you're going to be involving a lot of anterior delt at that point. So I prefer to keep my arms straight out at my sides, and I feel it a lot more in my side delts this way when performing this exercise. Now, again, you are going to feel your traps in this exercise. It's just the nature of it. You're not going to be able to remove that musculature from being worked. Again, if you've never done these, I would say definitely give these a try. You do not need to go heavy on these. Chances are, you won't be able to go heavy on these even if you wanted to. Another important point is to really take out that momentum. You don't want to be swinging from the bottom. If you're swinging from the bottom, you're doing yourself a disservice. And then again, on the way down, I'm really trying to control that eccentric. I'm not just letting it fall. This is gonna, require a lot of effort out of the side delts to really control that on the way down, and you're just going to feel them burning. So this is a really good exercise.
So that was set number 1. Like I said, I'm going to do 2 sets here, and then that is going to be the end of the work. All right, so just finished up back day. Again, if you guys made it this far, I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know for future videos. Drop it in the comment section, anything you want to see, and I will try my best to have those videos come out. If you could like, comment, subscribe. I would really appreciate all those things as well, and I will see you in episode number 4.